Before I begin and give you my presentation of this trip of Africa, which it was an absolutely pleasure to serve there, I just want to say thank you to all of Westside Bible Chapel for all your prayers and supports you gave during that time I was there. I can't tell you how much I appreciated it. And I'd also like to give a special thanks to Mr. Burkle for showing me the opportunity to go to Africa. I'm very grateful that I was able to go. So, as I was told to give this presentation, I started going through all my slides, and it took me back to so many memories of this place. And I just kind of started writing down of everything God was teaching me and showing me while I was there. And by the time I was done, I think I had a message just of that of itself. But I said I'll do a presentation again, so that's what I'm going to stick to. And we'll save that for another time. So I had ended up having over 1,300 pictures of this trip. And I did the math real quick, and that was like 1.4 seconds per slide. So I guess we won't be doing that. But I like just to encourage anyone, though, because I can't really fit everything in this message. And if you would like to know more about this trip, I'd love to share it with you. So this was a 26-day journey all around, and it was quite exciting. Every day we were seeing new things. And our main mission going to this to Chavuma, where it's at, is we were to put on a roof on top of the church as well as reslope it. And but the first day we were there, we were told that we were there to work, and so this will be a lot about work and how God is working in Chavuma. So as I got to Africa, I never realized quite how big this place is. I mean, it is humongous. I got this off the internet. I don't know how accurate it actually is, but it says it can fit, I think, Japan, USA, India, then like all of Europe, which is quite amazing. And if you're wondering where Zambia is in Africa, it's in South Africa, which is like right there. So here is the country of Zambia, and I'd just like to show you guys where we were at and just a little bit about Zambia. So I never even knew any of this when I went there, so everything was kind of a surprise, but I had to actually look this up. And Zambia is ranked number 10 in Africa as a country with extreme poverty, as over 64% of Zambians live under earn under $2 a day. So that was quite amazing. I mean, the way they live there, I would not have guessed that though. So, and then also another thing about the northwestern province of Zambia hosts the poorest people and the least developed in the country. And guess where we're going today? To the northwest province. So where we landed in was in Lusaka, and that is the capital of Zambia. And also, if you go just north right here, this is called the Copper Belt, which is the 9th richest copper deposit in the world. Then we flew all the way to Zambezi, and then drove to Chavuma, which is just right on the border of Angola. And then if you also, a neat thing about it, if you follow the Zambezi River, which is quite an exciting river as it's full of wildlife, but right on the Zambezi border and Zimbabwe is the Victoria Falls, which is one of the 7 wonders of the world. And then we also had the option of driving from Lusaka to Chavuma, which we decided not to, but the plus side of doing that was that you would go through Kafue National Park, which is like right here, and it's just full of wildlife, and that would be kind of interesting. It was up my alley. But we ended up not doing that, and the flight was a lot faster. It was 3 hours. So here is Chavuma Mission Hospital, and it's not, I just wanted to show you this picture. It's not the hospital, but it's what all the locals know it as the hospital, because there is no signs or anything showing where Chavuma is. Everyone knows that it's just being at the top of the hill. So you just kind of say it's on top of the hill, and they know where it's at. And also another interesting thing about this picture is this is called the termite mound. And they are absolutely everywhere. And we were nonstop just fighting the termites, it seemed like, on the roof, as that was one of our problems. But you can see how massive it is. It's almost at the size of a telephone pole there. It was a lot of fun seeing that. Amazing. So here are the full-time mission workers, and there is one missing here. that you'll see later on in the presentation here. And I'd just like to run you through what each person does, their role, and what they're doing. And so one of the things that make the missionaries different from other missionaries is that they are full-time workers at the hospital. I mean, 24/7, that's what they're doing, is running the hospital. So right here we have Martha Logan. She is a U.S. citizen. She grew up in Chivuma as a kid and went to America to get schooling. And then she came back and was working full-time for the mission. And her main job there is administrator, and as well as an English teacher. And one of the kids that I was talking with, it gave a pretty good way of what she does, I guess, is she's kind of the boss around here. So that's kind of how you can think of her. Right here is Fred Scott, and he was the team leader of Team Workers Abroad. And I was quite encouraged by these men, as there are 74 Fred here, and over here is Art Burnham in 78. And it was absolutely a testimony of God still working in everyone. And the fact that they would go there, and work like it, it's not easy stuff. It's quite impressive. So next is Henry Dick, and he's a Canadian. He's just kind of worked his normal job until he's 50 years old, then retired, and then looked to be a full-time missionary. He's the guy that we stayed with all our whole trip there, and he's a man with many hats, as he just takes care of the mission maintenance and everything that's going on. He's constantly building and trying to keep the hospital together. Right here is Tomiko, and she is quite an impressive lady. And a neat thing about her is she comes from Japan, which just alone is quite amazing, as only 1% in Japan profess Christianity. So she decided to become a full-time missionary when she was 29 years old, and now is in her early 50s. Quite impressive. She's quite committed. And her role here is as a nurse at Chivuma Mission Hospital, and she kind of splits the role with the other nurse we're seeing in the picture, as it's her shift. But she also takes care of getting all the supplies for the hospital, which is quite a challenge of itself, as they have to prepare 6 months ahead of time of what this hospital needs, and they have to prepare and get it. So she's always working. And she gave us a lot of food, which I was quite while we were working there. And the fourth one you'll see later on, but she's also a Japanese lady. Her name's Ayumi, and a good way to remember her name is like I-U-Me. Okay. So she also is, as I said, was a part-time nurse there, and she also takes care of accounting for the hospital there and just kind of keeping all the records in line. So here is I'm just going to take you what's around the hospital and all the buildings and what they do there. And this is the Chivuma College of Nursing and Midwifery. Since I was working most of the time, these things are just kind of vague. We just kind of hear about it and go on. But the schooling there is quite interesting, since they are so poor. The government does provide schooling, but the parents have to pay for uniforms and books. But since some of them are not able to do that, so they have to pick kind of between their kids, and usually it's either the oldest or the brightest of the bunch to get into school. But right here, so going through, there's not like a lot of kids that even are able to make it to the nursing college here, but it is something that they will go through to get to the hospital. And then right here is where they keep all their filing and health reports on all the patients that come to the hospital, and everything's by paper there. Everything's just right. And there's a fellow that works here that can find the exact paper he needs within like 15 to 20 minutes. It's quite amazing how he can find that. I mean, there's so many papers in there, but they're also trying to get more cabinets, as there is not enough room. As you can see, it's quite full. Okay, so on your left here is is where all the women come that are pregnant, and they will usually work around 8 months there, and then they'll come to the mission field to give birth. Wait out and just live there, because as unexpectedly they'll just they kind of have to be on demand and ready for the, or have a unit. Well, another thing that Tomoko does is she specializes in giving deliveries. She takes all the complicated deliveries as well as she does C-sections. She's the one that does that. So they would come up here, and whenever there is a ready, Tomoko will be there. And then on the right is just all the staffing buildings and all the people that work with, which teachers and other. Okay, so this building right here is kind of interesting. They take in all the people that got rejected from their tribes, as some of them are just because it's kind of a, what do they call it, survival of the fittest, because sometimes they don't have enough money, so they have to either take, sometimes they're older and they're not able to work, you know, and so they have to throw them out on the streets, and so we take them in here and we're able to give them a shelter, and then there's the rescue facilities, women on this side, men on this side, and the hospital also has a kitchen that feeds all the staff and everything. But it's amazing testimony of us Christians, though, to look for those that are rejected and bring them in and give them a home. Okay, so I didn't get any good pictures of the hospital, but this is the back side of the hospital. But I just wanted to show you what the supply rooms kind of look like, and this is actually the organized area. To get to this area, you had to walk into a building that's just full of boxes, and you squeeze through them and jump over boxes, and then Tomoko's like, "Oh, don't worry, I know where everything's at." And she keeps all the supplies, and her house is just completely packed with medical supplies, and it's quite amazing, as they're always needing room to expand because more patients will come in. Okay, so this was our main mission right here, to replace the chapel here and to re-slope it. This is, I believe, a 60-year-old roof, and one of my difficulties I had when I was doing it is just everything's in meters there, so it's like 35 meters by 10 meters wide. I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but that's around 110 feet long by 30 feet wide. So it's a pretty good sized building. And if you guys ever seen American Ninja Warriors, you probably remember an obstacle called the warped wall. And that's kind of what that was when we were going on top of the wall. We kind of get a little momentum to hold on to the top so we can get on the other side. But it's quite impressive seeing everyone get over, but yeah. So I was talking about termites would probably be a subject to future, and here's our first challenge here coming in, and this is all the termite mound. They kind of just come underneath the wall to the sheet metal there, and they just live underneath there. And so my first job was to get the dirt out, as we needed for it for structure. And so I'd take a pickaxe and I'd start just whacking at it, you know, trying to get it out. And as soon as I started going to work at it, just a bunch of termites got all over my legs, and it was hard. You kind of had to take a break sometimes. The good thing, though, however, is I was wearing shorts, so I was able, you know, to kill them right away and not let them get too much bothering. But they would just bite, you know, at nonstop and sometimes bleed. But the other gentlemen had, you know, jeans and pants on, so they would get ants in their pants, and they would have a long time, and they would not want to come back. So yeah, that was one of our problems on this side of the wall, just having a bunch of termites we were trying to fight off so we could get started on the building here. So Fred Scott spoke one of these Sundays, and this is I believe the second week of the Sunday, and I just kind of wanted to show you what the assembly like is there and kind of what we went through. As their language there is the valley, and so the whole service was in the valley. We didn't understand a word. But we would sing the songs, you know, and just trying to mimic what they said. And Henry here, he's really good at singing. And so, like, he would just go off, and I'm like, "Do you know what this means?" He's like, "Nope." I was like, "Okay." So we just tried our best in singing there. And sometimes they would say a phrase or two in English, as the national language is English, but there's also over 72 languages just in Zambia alone. So language barrier was kind of a problem there. But because of COVID and everything, they had a lot of restrictions, and not so much as what they wanted to do, but it's because if they were ever got caught without masks or anything, they report it to the government, and then the government could shut them down. So that's the reason why they had masks on, and they also took the remembrance meeting out because they couldn't find a way to make it do it safely, with COVID laws or whatnot. And then also you kind of see the ant dirt mound on the wall. There was a big mess here. We kind of cleaned it up, but they're quite resilient, so they decided to build their termite home on the side of the wall here, and there'd be off about a foot on the wall. It's quite amazing. They just don't want to give up. So here are the 4 elders of the church, and I work mostly with Matthias, as he was a big help in our work there, but I'll just kind of go through the names real quick. I think I have it here somewhere. If not, we'll just have to continue. I think it's Matthias, Peter, and then I know this is Joffrey right here, and then I'm not sure what his name is, but so Matthias was, he's kind of the businessman, but he was in charge of getting all of our lumber to the chapel, as he owns a sawmill there, and he's been blessed by a missionary that gave him that. But he had it at a Catholic church that was building up, that he had contract on, so it was a little bit of a tight squeeze trying to always get wood from him, but we gave him a little bit of pressure since he is the elder of the church. So we can put that on him there and give him so. But yeah, he's quite a busy guy. I mean, he's on stop, and I quite enjoyed his son a lot, as his name's Nathan, and we would talk a lot. But Nathan is kind of a big prayer request for the Chavuma mission, as he can speak both Valley and English, and so he can communicate real well with the locals there. And he's also he's grounded in the Word, so they're kind of hoping that he'll step up and help the mission there, and also with the camps, which you'll see later on. Okay, so this is kind of towards the camp area, and this is what they call, this is an airplane landing, well, it used to be. They're trying to get it back to airplane landing, as it's got out of control, and they need to upkeep it and kind of cut some trees down. But this only will be open 6 months of the year, as the other 6 months is rainy season, and it's completely full. It's a water wasteland basically. So that's one of the things that they're trying to get done, that CML is kind of pushing them to do, because if there's ever any emergencies or anything that really run into, they would have to get it quickly, and this would be the best option here. So here are the camps here. They start in May. Though I don't completely fully understand how they run, because I wasn't there during it, but just kind of show you what goes on here is they can get, depending on how much staff they get, is how much kids they'll be able to have. And they can get up to, I think, 240 kids at this camp, and they split it between 8 dorms here, which are quite small, and they just kind of pack them tight. They're sleeping on the floor there, and they'll have little mats or something that they'll lay on, but it's quite encouraging to see what they do there. I mean, they start out with just kind of reading the Word on their own and just kind of getting grounded, and then they'll have activities, and then if there's any special speakers that come, they'll listen to him, and they have a heart that's ready to listen if you're ready to talk to them. So also another thing that they do here is kind of teach them just basic survival skills, and they call it living skills, but we call it survival skills. So, for instance, they'll be just getting clean water, trying to figure out, as we're right by the Zambezi River here, just how to prepare food and what to get. Another little survival skill you can say is, I'll give you a little story. There had a girls' camp going on, and she's over by the river playing, and Martha sees the girl, and she's like, "You can't be over there. There's crocodiles, And so she didn't quite understand. And so about 15 minutes later, Martha walks back, and there's a crocodile standing exactly where this little girl was. So she kind of uses it as a little teaching moment. It's like, come here, and like, see, there's crocodiles. You can't go in there. However, it was quite an eventful camp, as they also had a hippopotamus come in during that time, and it kind of ruined the party, so they had to close the camp. And however, hippopotamuses aren't quite common there. They're not. You don't see that every day. Crocodiles, you will. And each dorm right here is one of the fruits of the Spirit, and you can kind of see what they look like here. They have a lot of things that need to be done here, and if you'd like to know more, I can tell you. I mean, I can't. There's so much. Okay, so this is just what it looks like inside of the house there and what they're using. There's not much. So these are what they call the elite dorms, and the people that staff or people that come and stay get to stay in here to help the mission. And you can kind of see the straw. It's kind of interesting how that is, but this is what you'd be living in, but our houses was a lot nicer, I'll tell you. This kind of intimidated me too. I was like, I don't want to live in here. But yeah, they don't have much but, a bed and food, which is all you really need though. So this is what they call a brie table right here. And what the locals do here is they put a bunch of firewood in the middle, and then they'll come and just kind of have a little family reunion and just kind of sit around it, and they'll have all their food and they'll just kind of cook it on the fire there. And then this behind there is their kitchen, which they're trying to get some access to fresh water, as well as some plumbing and other things that they're trying to work on. Okay, so back to the roof we were working on. Another little exciting thing that happened while we were working on the roof was these purlins going across right here. They're not all safe to walk on, so and you kind of can see actually right here, there's a big gap right there. So a lot of them just kind of fall off on their own, or not just kind of just laying on there. They're not secured to anything. So one of the things whenever we were on a loose one, was just kind of reach out, and I was quite nervous for Fred Scott, as he was over on the peak right here, and he started to move over, and there was a purlin that was broken and started going down and down. And I was like, Fred, you better watch out. You got your purlin. Like, oh, I was wondering why I was starting to get yeah, you better watch out for that. But also, another little animal experience is these walls were absolutely covered with bats. I mean, as soon as we took them out, they were just swarming. I don't know. Bats was a big thing there too. It kind of felt like Batman or something. I don't know, but we ended up having to clean out all the feces and everything they left behind. And yeah, I was wearing a mask actually while I was blowing it off. So this is kind of skipping a lot of steps, as we don't have that much time to get through this whole trip. But we were able, this is the truss going through, and these are the purlins coming up. But one of the cool things that kind of just used what we had there was to get these trusses lined up. The thinking was the hardest part of the job, because once we got going, we could just lay it down quick. But we laid one truss down on this side and one truss down on this side, and we tried to get it level. And the only way, and what we came up with, is to grab a bunch of surgical tubes that they use in the hospital, and we just lined them across the whole back of the roof there, and then we just poured a bunch of water in there. And I don't know if it, how good it is, how good the system is work, because it might have been air or something in there would completely mess the whole thing up. But we ended up using that water level as to how to level the other side 80 feet over the truss there, so we could just run streamlines across to put the truss up and just nail them exactly in place there. So one of the things there was hard and difficult to get was the locals to help us there, because I believe it's their fear of heights, and Enoch was a big help here. He was one of three that helped us on the roof, but even though one that doesn't like being on the roof will start shaking real bad, and he'll go over, and as soon as he touches a board or something, it'd be okay again, and he'd have to walk on all four. But they would go, their logic's not always sound, because they would go up 60, 80 feet in a tree, cut it down, no problem. And I'm out there like, oh wow, that's kind of scary. But Enoch, he was a local that was able to help us, so that was very nice, as he's wood carpentry as well. And he also, if you want to look at the souvenirs I got, he made these knives for me, which is very nice. And then, yeah, we're putting up there, starting the process of cleaning the roof up. Oops. Okay, so here's, just show you a picture of what this side was finished like, but I want you guys to take a mental picture of this trailer right here, as it comes in hand, as it's ended up being one of our jobs later on. So I guess I should clean it up. We didn't all, we all were safe there, and God protected us all, but one of the neat experiences, we all went through a little hardship, or a little bit, struggling. And when I was taking off the sheets of metal there, it's on rosewood, which is like the third hardest wood in the world. And so as I was pulling the nails out of there, they're pretty hard, and so you're breaking usually the nails out of there. And so as I was just yanking them out, and they were breaking off, I didn't realize, and I pulled pretty hard, and then I think one hit me right in my chest, and I was like, oh, that kind of felt weird, and I kind of lifted my shirt up, and my stomach's just full of blood. I was like, oh, man. And so I talked to Henry, like, Henry, what should I do? Like, you better go to Tomaco and get that fixed, as we got all kind of sorts of things out here. So I ended up going to Tomaco, and I was like, and I didn't actually know, I was just kind of like, oh, it just ricocheted off me. It didn't, it wasn't inside or anything. And so I just kind of told Ayumi, and she just cleaned me up and put a bandage on there. So I go back on the roof and start working again, and then I ended up doing that 2 or 3 other more times, slicing myself and bleeding and getting metal. I kind of saw a little metal stuck in there. I was like, I wonder if it actually is inside me. So it was in the morning as well, and so I was kind of, you get cold, which is around 60, which doesn't make sense, but that heat beating on you makes you feel pretty cold after you're done in the morning. But I looked at my jacket, and I just see a little slit in my coat, like, oh, it did go through my coat. I thought it might have ricocheted off of there. And so I was like, Henry, I think I probably have a piece of metal in there. He's like, well, better talk to staff. And just at that moment, Ayumi comes walking by as her shift is over. And so we go, and she gets Ayumi, and she's like, okay, let me go get all my medical stuff. And so she gets all the medical stuff, and I just kind of lay down on the church bench there, and she kind of gets her little tweezer, and she ended up finding a piece of metal, like, oh, you do got something in there. But I couldn't stop smiling as I was thinking of a quote. The church is not a hospital for the saints, but a hospital for the sinners. I was like, it was just so cool right there. I was like, man, we're all broken. Even though you could see something there physically, a lot of us are hurting, but we can't see it physically. So I was just kind of one of those days on the high. I was like, all right, But yeah, that was one of the experiences I had. And then also Fred Scott, which I don't know if we'll get there, but he also took a little bit of he got real sore in his hip. And it was really hard for him to walk the second week, which he was able to find something to do after that, as they don't really need you to do the roof. They got plenty of things for you to do it. The sky's the limit there. And so he found a cane and was able to move around there, and I was quite encouraged to see him. He didn't want to give up, and he kept using his skills there. And then Arthur Burnham, which kind of scared me, is he's on the ladder about halfway, and he falls off the ladder, and he hits the sandbag, and he's completely fine. He says, I'm like, at 78 years of age, he's doing that. I was like, are you okay? And so he's like, yep. And he's like, just don't tell my wife, because she won't let me go on these African trips. So don't tell his wife. So yeah, but he was quite encouraging too, as he would always just say, is like, I give my best to God, and the rest is in His hands. So this is just the process of getting all the sheets of metal up there, and we would have, it's kind of hard to see him, but there's actually a guy that's right here, which is Nathan. He's the elder son of Matthias, And we just slide it up on the sheets, and that day was quite hot as the sun just reflects off those panels, and it starts burning. It's like solar panels and just glaring off. You get a tan real quick there. But here's just your final product of what the church looks like after we're done, and what we were able to accomplish there. It's quite bright, however. I mean, Ayumi was like thinking it was too bright, and it kind of blinded her. She's walking from the hospital to her house. She's like, oh. Okay, so here is Ayumi right here, and this is just the time. I mean, the most encouraging thing was there is our fellowship we have with one another, and it just kind of kept us going. And that's one of the things that I just looked forward when I was working. It's just kind of coming down, and once you sit down, you're ready to rest for the night because you were working all day, and just hear all the amazing stories that they had. The locals have so many stories of wildlife and everything. It's just a cool thing just to hear that alone. And if you like to hear it, I'd love to tell you. So this right here is crocodile, which actually isn't legal to hunt in Zambia. But because there's so many, the policemen allow you to hunt them. So I was guaranteed, though, if I came back, that I would be able to go on a hunt for crocodile as well as tigerfish, which, if you want to know what tigerfish, look it up and you'll think twice about what that is. And then the girls always brought food as well, and we ate really well there. I mean, we were not hungry. We did not have any part of the trials that the locals there do. So it's something that they want missionaries very bad, and they prioritize you in everything. As why was it hurt, and going to the hospital, I was on the top of the list to get healed. So I'm like, all right, skip the line. So. Okay, and here's just kind of every Wednesday and Sunday we would just come together, and we would just sing and pray, and give messages, and just kind of all the prayer requests that was needed during that time, which was quite nice. Kind of felt like going back in time in the old days, because we were not using technology or anything, but it was so encouraging because it is just trusting in Him and not using all those distractions, as they can be a hindrance in our lives sometimes. So this is kind of a weird deal they got going on. This is a hospital that they have 15 minutes from them, and the government decided to pour all this money to make this nice hospital, and then wasted all the money and wasn't able to keep maintenance or anything to keep it going. So they really just used this for to hold COVID patients in. And it's such a big building, they're kind of praying that the government would just give it to them so they could use it, as they're just doing to people as well. They're doing what the government wants. So that's kind of a prayer they have, is just to get this upgrade here. This is the diesel engine that I worked on, which you probably didn't know that I worked on diesel engines. Well, neither did I. So I do gas work, and but I was a mechanic, so I got put on this job here. And it was quite an interesting day when I first started. If you remember, I told you to keep a memory of that trailer there. Well, ended up, he went to go get all the wood at the chapel at the Catholic Church, and he's coming back. And I guess he had an accident, or the trailer more like had an accident, and I guess it rolled over, and he was like, "Oh, it's just damaged a little bit." And so we're like, "Okay, a little bit, that's not bad, not a big deal." So Henry's like, "Let's go look at this trailer here and try to get it fixed and see bring it back at least." As it's stuck there, they had to take all the wood, and the guy was actually up to 2 o'clock at night doing all of this, trying to get all the wood back because he didn't want it to be taken. And he was a nice guy. Everything we told him to do, he's the man that did it. And they treat missionaries so well, is all I can say. There's nothing like what you think or what I thought it would be like. Okay, and this is just what the automotive store looks like, and this is everything they got there. Not much you can find that's needed. Usually you gotta go around 2 or 3 hours away to find actually the part you want. It's just kind of basic stuff like bolts and nuts and some fluids. but we were looking for an oil filter as I was doing, but it was not there, so they had to go 2 or 3 hours to get that. And here's the trailer that we decided to go fix, but we ended up having to replace this rim as it was bent, and it made it kind of roll quite lumpy. So we went to a place that which is John Leach's place, which is one other missionary, but he stayed only 6 months. And we were just looking around for a tire rim, and we ended up finding one that was used as a fire pit. So we're like, maybe that won't work. And it looks a little bit used to me, but we ended up trying it, and it didn't work, but we were able to find another one. And this fella right here, as I was there, he really wanted a picture, so I was like, okay, I'll take a picture of it. No idea what he was saying, but yeah, as we were working on this project to get back kind of there. It was kind of an interesting way that we took about it, as the axle was actually bent. The piece of metal was like I think it's like 1.25 inches. So our brilliant idea was to put a pull on there, and I would just kind of lift it up, and then Henry was jumping on the trailer trying to bend the piece of metal, which didn't work out that good. And so there's Teddy, the guy that will wreck the trailer, but he's the guy that also is nice that gets you everything. But we ended up taking the piece of metal, or the tubing, putting it on there, and I lifted on a piece of wood, and then we take a sledgehammer and I just whack at it, and then it just fell. And Henry was on it in the trailer, and he was like, ouch, and all the kids thought it was hysterical that we were on this side and this side. And the kids just are quite a blessing there, you just look at them and they don't know a clue what's going on, what they're experiencing, but they just thought we were the best thing, and we're live entertainment for them. And so after we got this problem fixed and we were heading out, they were just running after us saying goodbye, or well, not really, they can't speak it, but they're just waving at us and yelling at us, don't know what they were saying. It was quite fun seeing the kids there. This was a nice little experience we had, a full experience. Here is in Chavuma, they kind of have a lot of snakes, at least where we were on top of the hill, as it's a rocky hill. And the night before, we had, Martha was telling me, well, to watch out, there's a spitting cobra 2 houses away. So the next day, we kind of just look at the ground a little bit more, make sure there's nothing there. And so, but right after lunch, this boy named Jojo, he came and he was the killer of the snake, and he just kills it with rocks. I was like, oh, that's a man right there, kill it with a rock. But another exciting snake that they have there is the black mamba. It's quite an exciting snake, and it gets to around 8 to 14 feet, and it has a good name for being the fastest snake in the world. So I was like, and it's also the 5th most deadliest snake in the world. So it's quite amazing. Me and Martha talked a lot about snakes. I thought they were quite exciting. Okay, so here's what Fred Scott was able to do at the end within the last week that we were there, and he ended up taking all the broken wheelchairs, and he was able just to put little parts on there like wheels and other things that needed, and was able to fix a lot of wheelchairs there. I mean, there's a lot of mundane things, a lot of things that are simple. You don't need to have any certain skills to do there. You just need a willing heart to serve. And so here's also what Art was doing. He was on, he replaced all of these lights from fluorescent to LEDs and did floodlights on both sides of the building there. I just have a lot of respect for those guys doing what they did there. Every Friday night we would have all the kids come, and we just play lots of games and just a fellowship. And then I was also a little bit of a cooker there. I made, I think, over 100 cookies there. Had a fun time doing that. Okay, and then their water system is, so here's their pump right here, and it's a ram pump, and they have to move it 6 times in the year, and 3 times going down in the water and 3 times coming up, so they can always access it for maintenance and whatnot. And And so this was one of our projects, just trying to move it back down into the water so it stayed in the water. But the city, there's also the Zambia that has a water tank there, and it's kind of a mess how they have it, as they're trying to treat water. And then one day they'll decide not to treat it at all. So there's a lot of people that, that'll have diarrhea and all this nasty stuff from it. So we just keep it all natural way and keep it dirty and then just boil everything. Which you just kind of get in the habit of just putting on the kettle. We had an electric kettle, so it was nice. You just flip the switch on and let it do its thing. And this is another job that I was sent on. I was kind of sent on lots of little tasks, but I was helping Enoch, the guy, the carpentry, and quite an interesting way how they make these bricks. They are from the termite mounds, and what they do is they make it as mud, and then they put it in the wood forms, and then once it dries enough, they'll stack it up in kennels, and then put a bunch of wood in there and light it on fire, and then it will get it hard. And the reason why they like those termite mounds is because it's rich in clay material, and so when you burn it, it makes it water resistant. However, there's still a little bit, they're quite easy breakable still, so I think 8 or 10 of them got broke just by picking them up. And Henry was telling me, like, when they usually transfer them through the bush and stuff, which is just wild. It was quite fun going wild, but like 33% of the whole, everything you're carrying will break on a brick, so a lot of them just break right away. So this is around 300 bricks that we used to transfer. And then this is what he's using it for, is a workshop that he's trying to move towards, and it was quite fun helping him there. Kind of running out of time. Okay, then just a quick little thing about their food here. This is Shima, which is their main food source there, and it is just basically maize that is ground up, and then they have like a powder, and then they boil it, and then they add more powder to get this consistency. And I was quite excited to go there and try the Shima that they're talking about, because I want to try the local food. I like food. I want to see what this is about. And so I take this piece and I just eat it plain, and start eating it like, not bad. No, it's super bland. It's a filler food. They use it for chicken, beef, or meat, and you take that Shima, put it in your mouth, and you take one of those quickly and you try to get the taste of that in your mouth, as that's what you're trying to. You don't want to taste the Shima. And then this is cassava, which is a very good plant for developing countries. But they'll take these leaves and they'll boil them, and then this right here is quite interesting, because you think as a plant you'd use a seed or something, but you just stick that in the ground, put soil on it, and in a year and a half it'll grow all by itself again. I thought that was quite cool. And they also eat the root, which is rich in iodine, or which has iodine or some poisonous thing, which is kind of, it makes you think about twice before eating it. But they have to take a special treatment. They put it in boiling water, or they put it in water, let it soak, and then put it in boiling water to abstract all of that, and then it's safe to eat. But they gotta make sure to throw the water, otherwise they would use it again, because nothing goes to waste. So. And then also another thing is just a lot of fires there. And you ask, why is there so many fires? Well, I don't think they even know. I was talking to Nathan, like, why is there so many fires? And he asked Henry, like, why is there so many fires? And like, Henry's explanation is they see a snake, and so they just decide to light a fire. Just it's out of control. So I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah, that was on the other side of Angola, on Angolia side. And then this guy, John Leach, which we're getting to the end now. So he was a great encouragement when I was there, and he lives in Cape Town, and he's trying to live in Zambia full time. So he lives 6 months in Cape Town and 6 months in Zambia, and his mission really is just to get people out of the dirt and trying to live a better life and to help them. And he also is the guy that missionaries will use to get access to very foreign places that no one else can get to. And he invited us over one night and just to talk, and we're talking about World War I and II, and he's talking about the Bush War he's in, and the stories he says, I mean, man, it's crazy. I can't imagine, but all of these, he's talking about how dark it is and everything, and then he's like, it's getting dark out there, guys, but we need to look at the light. We need to be encouragement to one another. We need to shine for God, and I appreciate Dan Lindsted's message last week, we need to shine for God. There's not a better time than right now. He was a true encouragement, and that's what I love more, just the fellowship we can have with one another, to help each other and strengthen one each other. And I just found this as a tremendous blessing and experience to grow my faith. To live not by faith but by sight. And just a quick verse, in Proverbs 3:5-6 is, "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not on thy own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path." And this is just a wonderful verse just to meditate on day and night. Trust in the Lord with all thy heart. There's no other way. As I was there, there's lots of things that can bring it down, but we have to trust him not only in our circumstances, but with our mind as well, and let him renew our mind daily, because the battles is in the mind. We have to help one another and encourage one another as we're all going through things. So I'm going to end now because I have time. So does anyone have any questions or anything? Yes, Danny.
Is that the rim you tried to use?
No, that was a good question though. The rim we use is probably 100 feet away from that. They use it in another camp there, but yeah, there's a fire. It's quite common to use rims for fires. I don't know why. Also, I'd like to say I'm sending a bunch of things that are needed at the hospital in Zambia. So if you would like to contribute to that, please look at these sheets, and you can either go and find what they want, or if you just would like to give a donation or put your money in the offering and make it out to Africa, we'll use that money to get those items there and send it there. And I welcome to you all to look at the souvenirs that I got from Africa. It was an amazing experience, and God really taught me so many things, from just in the airport till the last day when I got home. So it's just a good reminder to keep our eyes on him. This world is getting darker and darker, and we have to keep our eyes on him.
Amen.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this time that we took to look at the mission and how fast and how much we need to serve you, Lord. I just pray, Lord, that we would encourage us and, Lord, strengthen our faith. Lord, help us to shine for you, Lord. I just ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.